Observers from across the political spectrum agree that President Biden's alarming debate performance last night showed all too clearly that he does not seem to be up for serving 4 more years in office. And the American people are going to demand answers about whether the White House chose to hide his decline from the public. Why did they do it? Last night, CNN's senior political commentator Scott Jennings flat out accused the Democrats of lying.
The candidacy has fallen, okay? Van, I know you're speaking from your heart. I'm worried about the president. We should pray for the president. I think his advisors, I think the White House, and I think his family have a lot of explaining to do to their party and to the American people. This night, this one night, was caused by and asked for by the Biden team. They wanted this night. And this is what we got. We have been told for weeks by Democrats who say, oh, in private meetings, I've seen Joe Biden do cartwheels and handstands while doing trigonometry while solving all the nation's problems. We now know that every single person who said that has been lying to the American people. Everything we've been told about his mental acuity by these Democrats has been a lie, and everything we think we knew has been confirmed.
Kennedy, we were told there was a new term called cheap fakes for edited video. We were told not to believe our eyes. This was a cover-up of epic proportions. I don't think I'm overstating that. When you put together everything that's been said, not just in the last few weeks, over the last 3.5 years.
Yes, and voters have known that, and they've seen that. And some have been very worried, and some are just told they're plain stupid, or that they have been the victims of right-wing propaganda. This was not a cheap fake. This was, unfortunately, 90 minutes of brutal pain, and someone has been incredibly dishonest this whole time. Remember when Ronnie Jackson was peppered with questions about President Trump's health, his mental health, his psychological well-being, and whether or not he's fit for office? Why hasn't there been some sort of a public medical exploration and psychological of President Biden? We deserve that as voters. And you can only hide these kinds of problems for so long. And just in a few months since the State of the Union, his decline has been precipitous. So if that's what happened 5 months ago, what is the president going to be like 5 months from now?
Yeah, let's revisit what we were told. Here's memory lane. Let's play it.
Oh my gosh, he's the president of the United States. You know, I can't even keep up with it. I would put the president's stamina, president's wisdom, ability to get this done on behalf of the American people against anyone on any day of the week.
I'll tell you the reality of it is, and I spent a lot of time with President Biden, be it in the Oval Office, in the Situation Room, and other places. He is extraordinarily smart. He has the ability to see around the corner.
He can do it, and I see Joe every day. I see him out, traveling around this country. I see his vigor. I see his energy. I see his passion every single day.
Marie, here is the problem. This is not merely a political exercise of delusion, that the Democrats, despite 75% wanting someone else, were deluded. This is not about politics. This is about our country. This is about someone who's on the phone with Xi, someone who's on the phone with Putin, someone who's on the phone with the head of the Taliban. Lives lost. 13 were killed. They're American citizens in the hands of Hamas right now as we speak. And imagine if you are a family member watching this debate and then remembering what these people told you. I would be livid.
So I think that we should be careful about diagnosing people from afar. People used to say this to me about President Trump, because I would say, look, I think he's lost his mind and he's crazy, but people would say, no, Marie, you can't diagnose people from the TV screen. Fine. Look, presidents put out yearly physical reports. They have doctors who look at them. I remember some very funny things and nonsensical things in Ronnie Jackson's about President Trump. I think we have gotten to a place in this country where people around presidents often talk them up and want them to seem more vigorous. We've heard this. This is not a new phenomenon. But what I will say...
But Marie, if you closed your eyes and listened to Joe Biden last night, would you be comfortable hearing that voice with that acuity on the phone with Xi?
I would much rather have that voice on the phone with Xi than what I heard from President Trump last night and his lies and his offensive comments and parroting Putin's talking points.
What lies?
We could do another hour on that, Kayleigh, but we don't have time.
But that's just it, Jason. I've watched the other networks. That's the DNC talking point. Trump lied, but I've yet to hear a footnote.
Yeah, no, they absolutely right. Look, I watched last night. It went from sad to mad to frightened. This guy still has 6 more months in office. I blame Jill Biden. I blame those that are around and the puppeteers that are actually controlling and running this country. I blame the media for not being, asking the hard questions and pushing the envelope, allowing him to go for 6+ months with no press conference where you got to actually answer questions without a teleprompter and a card. And it makes you mad at this point that we're doing this.
Yeah, and there's a moment that didn't get enough attention last night. Here's Joe Biden in a memory loss that was probably rather hurtful.
The idea that he did something that was significant in the military. You know, when he was president, they were still killing people in Afghanistan. He didn't do anything about that. When he was president, we were still finding ourselves in a position where you had a notion that we were this safe country. The truth is, I'm the only president this century that doesn't have this decade, that doesn't have any troops dying anywhere in the world like he did.
No troops died, except let's show their faces. These are the 13 who lost their lives at Abbey Gates. Among them is Riley McCollum, who never met his sweet little baby girl who was born after he perished. And if we want to talk about lies, I don't know if that was memory lapse, but that was untruthful. You know who did not have a single service member death on his watch during his final year? It was Trump. After he spoke to the head of the Taliban. They knew you touched one of the hairs on their head, you're done.
That's right, because we saw when Iran hurt one of our people, they lost Soleimani. So Trump had a reputation for taking action. What I can say is that if you expect anything from the president, he or she is the commander-in-chief. And you have forgotten the slaughter of 13 American heroes. Now, not only don't know their names, don't even remember what happened to them. So, and when it comes to his behavior or the cognitive appearance, for too many American families and families around the world, they already recognize that. American families know what's happened, and they see the abuse, as I would say, that it involves this. But none of the rest that we've experienced, including Ukraine, would have happened without that signal out of Iran about the American president.
Yeah, General Keith Kellogg, I spoke with him this morning, and I said, could things have been different now that you've seen the acuity of the president for 90 minutes? He said, I believe all could have been stopped, and this is not a partisan comment.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kayleigh McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.